Hello there, my fellow mainframers and computer performance analysts. You know, I'm often asked for Workload Manager service definition guidelines by customers who want to achieve the most effective WLM management of their ZOS workloads and resources. In this video, I will discuss with you a highly recommended guideline for the optimal number of Workload Manager service class periods to help you towards the most effective WLM management of your mainframe environment and workloads. Hi there, I am Peter Enrico of Enterprise Performance Strategy. My team and I are here to help you get great workload performance while optimizing the usage of your system resources in the mainframe environment. Our education and our Pivotor software are geared towards helping you get better performance results and faster. We created the Mainframe Performance channel to teach you how to do what we do. Now, if you're new here, click that subscribe button, and any of the references I give in this video, I'll be sure to link in the references below. Okay. So as I stated in my introduction, I am often asked for ZOS Workload Manager service definition guidelines to achieve the most effective WLM management of the ZOS workloads and resources. One of the most frequent of those questions is, what is my recommendation for the optimal number of WLM defined service classes? Now, during this video, I will give you the correct guideline, and I will recommend this guideline to you. I will be honest and say that quite often customers will tell me that they've heard of a guideline that they need to keep the number of defined service classes to less than 30. So let me say up front that forcing the number of defined service classes to less than 30 has never been my recommendation. In fact, forcing the number of defined service classes to 30 or less may, and I say may, inhibit WLM from predictable management of your workloads and resources. Now, as you know, one of the key objectives of a ZOS Workload Manager administrator is to maintain a WLM setup that results in predictable and effective management of the environment. So here is my recommendation for the optimal number of WLM service class periods. I state it as follows, and it's listed here. Try to keep the number of defined WLM service class periods that are active on any given system in a sysplex to less than 30 during intervals of time that matter. Now, this recommendation has several key details I want to explain, since understanding them can make a huge difference in the way you approach your WLM service definition and service class definitions. So please take a moment and read this recommendation carefully, and in a moment I'm going to break it down for you point by point and explain how to check your environment relative to this recommendation. But before I do so, I want to take a moment more to explain the reason that this recommendation even exists. And it has to do with WLM responsiveness. A super important point is that when WLM attempts to help work meet its goals, WLM will only help at most one service class period towards its goal value every 10 seconds. Now, when you have too many service classes that are active, or service class periods that are active, it's very possible it will take WLM longer to help a workload when it misses its goal. Another issue has to do with the dilution of performance measurement statistics. WLM uses statistics to make its decisions. WLM is continuously collecting measurements about your workloads and your resources. Now, without going into too much detail, one of the foundations of WLM performance algorithms is that internally, workload measurements are analyzed by the algorithms. If you have too many active periods on any one system during a policy adjustment interval, then you run the risk of diluting the measurements and the statistics that WLM uses. In other words, you risk spreading the measurements too thin among the WLM service class periods to be managed. And this could result in WLM making less than optimal decisions. A third reason you may not want to have too many active WLM service class periods is because too many periods usually results in WLM making decisions to help only a small groupings of work. The typical result is that WLM makes small, what I call tweaking decisions rather than significant decisions. Sometimes it's better for Workload Manager to make a big decision, like change a dispatching priority for a group of work, than a small decision. So it's these minor changes that WLM should be, you should have helped WLM to avoid. And the way you do that is by not having too many WLM service class periods, which will in turn impact the performance of your overall workloads and environments. So these are the three reasons why you want to keep the number of service class periods containable. So let's look into this recommendation now. So let's discuss the guideline I recommend you follow. Here it is listed again. Let's go through it point by point so that you have an understanding of each point. Once again, the recommendation reads as follows. Try to keep the number of defined service class periods that are active on any given system in the sysplex to less than 30 during intervals of time that matter. Okay, let's break this down a bit. First, it states, try to keep the number of defined service class periods. The key point here is that the recommendation refers to the number of service class periods and not to the number of defined service classes. This means if you're making use of, let's say, multiple period service classes, then each period must be considered. WLM management is done at the period level and not at the service class level. Next, let's discuss this number 30. The number 30 was a number that we came up with many years ago as a nice round guideline number. A strong point I want to bring out is that the number 30 is only a guideline. It is not a hard and fast rule. In the world of WLM, the number 30 is certainly not any magic number and not any special limit in the WLM algorithms. It is simply a made-up guideline that we developed based on countless hours of WLM analysis for many dozens of installations. The number 30 was just meant to give you a reference point. Now, I want to bring your attention to the word active in the recommendation. The older incorrect recommendation refers to the number of defined service classes. You don't care about the number of defined service classes. You don't even care about the number of defined service class periods. What you do care about is the number of service class periods that have any activity in them activity in them. Now, I define activity as either an ended transaction or some usage of CPU. You see, WLM management doesn't care very much about periods that are defined but have little to no activity in them. Periods with no activity can't be helped or have resources stolen from them, and so they don't affect the WLM decision-making process very much. For example, say you have a period named hot batch that is defined, but normally no work ever runs in the hot batch service class unless there's some unique need. In this case, this service class period would not count towards your guideline of 30. So it's the activity that matters. The next key point I want to discuss is the phrase, on any given system in the sysplex. This means that when you go to count the total number of service class periods that are active, you only care about the number of periods that are active on any individual system. For example, if a service class period has activity on system A, but has no activity on system B, then you count this period as being active on system A, but you don't count it as being active on system B, towards the 30 guideline. This is towards the 30 guideline. And the final phrase of interest is intervals of time that matter. In other words, if a batch service class period is heavily being used during the nighttime batch window, say, but has little or very random activity all day long during prime shift, then we don't really want to count it very heavily towards the prime shift period of time. You count it towards the nighttime period of time. So we only count it towards the 30 during the nighttime period of activity and not so much during the daytime period activity. So I hope that makes sense. This is the recommendation. So how would you go about monitoring if you're adhering to this recommendation? Well, what I would recommend you do is create a table similar to what I'm showing here in this diagram. What this particular table shows is you see that you have three columns. Columns A, B, and C to represent systems A, B, and C in this fictitious environment. And each line in this table represents a defined service class, period. Now, what I'm also showing you here is a lot of ones and zeros, and what I'm trying to indicate is what you would do is you would look at your measurements, and then for each defined service class period for each system, put a 1 in the grid to indicate that there was activity for that period, and put a 0 in the grid to indicate that there was no activity. And then what you want to do is what I did here was you sum the bottom. Now in this particular fictitious example, I show that we have 16 defined service class periods, but notice that for one of the systems, at least of two, there's 6 active service class periods. So you see, when you count the number of active service class periods, you might actually get a much less number than the number of defined service class periods. But that's just one instance. Now, in our Pivotor product, we create a chart similar to the following. And what this chart is showing us is, for all the systems in this particular sysplex, give me the number of active service class periods during any interval of time during the day, any 15-minute measurement interval. And what you see here is that I happen to know that this particular environment has 26 defined service classes with 31 defined service class periods, yet we see here in this example the peak number of active periods is only 23. So I'm well within that 30 guideline. So that is how you would monitor this in your environment. Okay, so before I let you go at the end of this video, the one final point I want to make is to let you know and to kind of stress the point that this is just a guideline, what we discussed in this video. Do not think WLM will not work if you are above the 30 limit. I will say you may run the risk of a less than optimal management of your workloads, but you will not break Workload Manager. So I do hope this video will help you as you go forward towards an optimal workload management of your z/OS environment. So that's it from me, Peter Enrico. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, can you hit the like button? I would certainly appreciate that. Please let me know you enjoyed the video. And once again, thank you to all my fellow mainframers and computer performance analysts, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you've not done so already. So until next time, take care, stay well, stay healthy, and enjoy the day.